My thinking is that the meeting that happened yesterday had very little to do with that EAC process, even though I think it may have been sparked by that EAC arrangement. If William Ruto would not have met Uhuru Kenyatta at all, then it would have been an indictment on the regional front, because then the regional players and the regional states would be asking, the EAC states would be asking, why the chair of the EAC has not met the head of the DRC peace process. So that was bound to happen. But looking at our local political situation,
yes,
William Ruto may also have been backed into a corner. As we speak today, the Catholic Church has been on the forefront in leading, the religious community in condemning certain government action, in criticizing certain government policy. William Ruto is not a Catholic. He will look towards an individual who could speak, to that demographic of the religious community, and Uhuru Kenyatta is an individual who could do that. He's also facing quite a lot of backlash in the central region, in Mount Kenya. He does not see eye to eye with Gachagua. That is in the public domain. If he ignores Mount Kenya completely, because Mount Kenya has quite a number of people, members of parliament in the National Assembly. And the National Assembly is crucial because that is the house of impeachment. If you're talking about impeachment of the Deputy President and the President, that is the place of budget. That is the place where a lot of our national legislation and policy, gets through. If he ignores Mount Kenya completely, given the wave that is now going through Mount Kenya, the citizens of Mount Kenya are now going against any member of parliament who voted in support of Gachagua's impeachment motion. And that is dangerous for William Ruto, because these members of parliament will go into a self-preservation mode if it comes to it, because they are not there just to serve William Ruto. They are there for their own benefit too. So if it gets to it, they could turn against William Ruto in a big way. So William Ruto needs the support of an influential individual within Mount Kenya region. And because Uhuru Kenyatta still is the de facto leader of Mount Kenya, that meeting is important on that front. I also think that he may not have had this meeting because he wanted it. There may have been other actors behind the scenes who influenced the meetings. Just like with all the handshakes we've had in this country, it is not the principals who have wanted these handshakes. There are certain actors, business interests that come into play, political interests that are beyond the individuals themselves that come into play. So the meeting is very strategic for William Ruto in that now it paints a picture that he has the support of Uhuru Kenyatta. But this could go a different way if those in the corner of William Ruto maintain their arrogance. If they come out this week and in the weekend now saying, the president met Uhuru Kenyatta, Gachagua can go where he wants to go, the president now has the people of Mount Kenya. If they take that arrogant stance, then that meeting will have no consequence at all. Okay.
And of course, just joining us is Dr. Julia Chege, governance expert. Daktari, first of all, I even asked Philip this. Were you surprised? And of course, the timing of this particular meeting, Philip has just touched upon. What are some of the political implications or the effects of this meeting will have on our political system?
Thank you so much, and good morning, our viewers. Hashim and Philip, I found you outgoing. And this is a very interesting question. When you ask if we were surprised, if President Ruto met President Uhuru, from where I sit, we are not surprised. Because, of course, the Kenya Kwanza regime is full of arrogance, chest thumping, and letting the cat before the milk is produced, and we were able to know that there will be such a meeting, and it was hyped, and all the bloggers, including the Adani bloggers, everybody was talking about it. And therefore, when they met, for Kenyans and people who have political interest, it was not a surprise. But then it was supposed to happen. It was important that it happened, and it's only in this regime we are seeing that the current president is not interested so much in meeting the former president, even for a piece of advice, because a country is not ran like a political party or even a ministry. There is a particular way countries are governed, and therefore when we saw what happened, we were okay with that. But now, after yesterday, whatever will happen will actually maybe make or break the current regime.
Okay.
And to start with is the arrogance, and the chest thumping and looking like everybody else who was not with them doesn't have a head, Yeah.
But isn't this a good thing for Kenyans?
It is a good thing for Kenyans, but as the people from the mountain, we know what has happened to us. We are still hurting, and we are still grieving on what has happened in a very short time, and there are major constitutional issues that are supposed to be addressed, but only one issue that was addressed, that is of the deputy president. Despite the fact that we have there's one appointed deputy president, the one that is elected, people are still with them. And the more they delay this, the more they talk about him, the more people love them, love him. Initially people didn't like him, but right now he's a darling of the people. It's because people are feeling oppressed, people are feeling betrayed, people are feeling left out, people are feeling like they are alienated, and that political alienation is not going to be very well with the Mount Kenya. And the Mount Kenya are feeling like if President Uhuru met President Ruto, whatever they discussed, let them not discuss issues to do with the DP and all that. Let them discuss other issues. People are still speculating what was the content of their discussion. And once it is out there, because it will be out there very soon, now that will now shape the Mount Kenya politics again. And it's not going to be easy. Yes.
But Dr. Julia, is it about Mount Kenya, given that these are two leaders,
yes,
the fourth and the fifth meeting,
yes,
and the issues that were raised both from their statement, you could clearly see is on the same convergence. It is a national matter.
Yes.
So aside from Mount Kenya issues, as a country, the issues that were raised here, including some of the transformation agendas that has seen the transfer between the two governments, is still ongoing. We have seen even the current administration taking up some of the projects that were spearheaded by the past administration.
Yes.
So for Kenyans, is it not a good thing, and to lower the political temperatures?
It is a good thing, but remember how this regime came into power. That is the bone of contention. How they came in by disregarding everybody and feeling like there is going to be a miracle. Government is an ongoing concern, and therefore there is nothing that you can do outside government that has never been done, and you make that big difference. You can only be able to take or to propel the wheel forward and not backward or even stagnate it. And therefore the meeting was important in terms of national unity, but we cannot bury our heads on the things that are affecting our country. And therefore their meeting could be null and void if it comes out with if it is conveyed to Kenyans in a matter of arrogance, in some other matter, to like the way we find our Kenya Kwanza registrators, feeling superior over other registrators, of which it is good because they are the current, is the ruling party. But sometimes they lose the goal. Right now, if I was in Kenya Kwanza, for example, if I was in Kenya Kwanza and I will not be focusing on the party politics. I will focus on the national politics, because the political parties politics has really made our country to look backward, and everybody is feeling like yes, today I can be in this party because it is the one that is ruling, tomorrow I can be in the other one. And you find we don't have political parties, for example, that are strong. I really congratulate ODM, you know, because it looks like it knows where it's headed, you know. We have a political party like the DP. They are, you know, they're independent, they're there, you know, but they're not in government, they are not out of government, they're just there, you know. And that is not very good for our country, because a country does not grow whereby people are having so many political parties. Of course, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but sometimes we may not be able to progress so much when we have all these political parties that sometimes have no direction. Yes.
And of course, Philip, what are some of the realignments we could witness in the coming days?
There will be very few in terms of political realignment. And when you're talking about political realignments, you're talking about active voices within the political space. And most of them are legislators, members of parliament in the National Assembly and in the Senate. Those who have been in defense of Gachagua will remain in that camp. Those who have been in defense of William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza government, as it were, will also remain in that camp. There may be a shift in sympathies because largely we have citizens who are swayed by, you know, these kinds of appearances. A meeting is held between two people. We do not know what they discussed beyond what they have given us. And that appearance is enough to sway some sympathies. So there are people who may have been in defense of Gachagua, but because they were also in Uhuru Kenyatta's camp, they would now shift their sympathies away from Gachagua. So if Rigathi Gachagua maintains his critical stand of the William Ruto government, and which really is a little hypocritical, because everything he now stands against, he was in support of just a few weeks back. If he maintains that stance, the only support he will remain with is the support of certain areas of the Mount Kenya region. We may see some of the individuals who Yes.
Okay, in just a minute, let me stop you, Philip, and then I'll come back to you. Don't worry. Okay. I want to take our viewers. Let's come back here to the studio. There is an event going on. It is the labor migration at the Radisson Blu, launch of the first UN joint program on the migration, mobility and regional integration. And of course, the UN launches USD 28.5 million for that particular program. And of course, currently speaking is none other than James Kianda, representing the PS Immigration. Let's listen in.
While enjoying human rights, trust institutions, and participate in transformative governance systems. This framework calls for enhancement of institutional and humane capacities at national and developed levels through implementation of laws and policies that are inclusive and responsive to human rights, peace, human security, gender equality, access to justice, transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. In line with our Constitution and in compliance with regional and international commitments with which Kenya is party to, particularly focus on children and youth, women and girls, people living within ASOL areas and urban informal settlements. The unprecedented climate change in the region has heightened the need for cooperation in addressing the advanced drivers of migration and challenges that transcend territorial boundaries. The government of Kenya has endeavored to foster regional cooperation in ensuring human and regional migration through adoption of human rights-based approaches to migration governance and strengthening coordination mechanisms. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to appreciate the joint efforts of the United Nations, UN, the government of Kenya through various ministries and agencies, departments, the civil society, and the private sector in developing the JPs, which I believe will contribute effectively to the realizations of government's development priorities and provide transformative and scaled-up actions to sustainable development goals. The adoption of whole of government and a whole of society approach in developing this program shows the government commitment in strengthening migration into national, county development plans to address the challenges and harness the opportunities of migration. I want to reiterate the government of Kenya's commitment in adopting and implementing migration and regional integration policies that advance protection and rights of all migrants, particularly women, all children, youth, all the people living in ASO areas and counties, and informal settlements. Last but not least, I wish to acknowledge the unwavering commitment and support of the UN Network on Migration in strengthening migration governance in Kenya. And on this positive note, I wish now to declare the meeting officially open. Thank you.
Well, that is the Labour Migration. James Kianda, the Secretary of Administration. The joint program, of course, has been set to run for December 2024 to June 2026, will focus on enhancing Kenya's capacity in addressing migration issues, fostering mobility and promoting regional integration across the East African region. Our reporter Frederick Moki is attending that particular function and will duly inform us in our subsequent bulletins. But let's come back here to the studio. We still maintain our conversation in terms of the Ishawiri Summit that you witnessed yesterday between President William Ruto and the former head of state, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta. And of course, we were talking earlier, Philip, you were just expounding on some of the realignments we could witness. Kindly continue.
I talked about this shift of sympathies that may happen. The other thing that we may see, because of the fallout between Gachagua and William Ruto, certain individuals who had been brought into government by Rigathi Gachagua and his camp had been swept away. Some are still in the process of being first off. What we may see is a replacement of those individuals. And, you know, it's our reality that our politics are very tribal. So we may see a replacement of those individuals where they are not going to be replaced with ODM adherents or people who have been seconded by the ODM party and Raila Odinga's camp. Those individuals would now be seconded by Uhuru Kenyatta's camp. That is the reality that we are going to see in the next coming months. But in terms of realignment with the legislatures, there's very little that is going to happen. There are very few of them that are going to come out to declare that now they're in support of the Kenya Kwanza government when they were supporting Rigathi Gachagua. The other thing that we may see going forward, because this is a lifeline that William Ruto has tried to buy himself. We saw the statement from the office of the president, from State House, is slightly different from the office of Uhuru Kenyatta, the office of the fourth president.
The points were almost similar.
They're almost similar, but the tone is different. It became necessary, in my view, to have the statement from Uhuru Kenyatta's office, because the statement by the president seemed to point to a direction where it appeared, it should have appeared to the Kenyan public that now Uhuru Kenyatta is in support of William Ruto. The statements point to similar issues, but the tone is very different. The tone from the statement from Uhuru Kenyatta's office is one seeking to clarify what may have been misjudged by the Kenyan public. That is my reading of those two statements. One of the things that came out clear, William Ruto's statement has too much detail that the statement from Uhuru Kenyatta's office does not have. Uhuru Kenyatta's office sticks to building a broader political consensus. We know why that is so. There is the Mount Kenya question and those who are being harassed, political opponents being harassed. There is also the question of IEBC and transparent processes. There's also the third bit where Uhuru Kenyatta is placing himself at the disposal of William Ruto for advice, private counsel, if we may call it that. And it ends there. William Ruto's statement is very broad, mentions things that may not have been said, but they appear reasonable. You know, they are reasonable things that we think should have been discussed in that meeting, but they may not have been discussed in that meeting. I highly doubt that you know, the peace of the region was discussed in that meeting. In as much as it is a reasonable thing that should have come out.
You are not there.
I'm not certain. I'm saying I highly doubt. I'm expressing my suspicion.
Because you know how Kenyans have been integral, especially our defense forces.
I do.
Across
and that is why it was reasonable for William Ruto's team to put that in their statement, because it is a reasonable thing. A sitting president and a chair of the ESC and one who is leading the peace process in the DRC should discuss these things. So there are reasonable things that should be discussed, but I highly doubt, and my suspicion is based on William Ruto's character and reputation. I mean, he has a reputation of saying things that are not true. The English call that lying. I mean, it's in the public domain. We take, in legal parlance, we call it judicial notice. We know that the president has said things, you know, that have happened when, you know, we know that they didn't happen. He has promised to do certain things that he later says he didn't promise. So, you know, that double speak is something that we credit to him. So I was not in that meeting. I am just reading from, number one, the reputation of these two individuals and the current political climate. But that said, if at all what the president says was discussed was indeed discussed, we are then left with body language. As you mentioned when we were starting, the 30 seconds is very little to, you know, to tell us really what the meeting was about. But body language experts will tell us. I'm not one, but you know, my pedestrian reading of their body language is one where I see William Ruto, the president, still a little timid around Uhuru Kenyatta. Whether that has a bearing on the extent of their discussions or not, I cannot tell. But what I could tell is that the president was not very free. If the discussions were very fruitful to his advantage, then the body language will slightly have been different. But I mean, the experts, and that's what I'm saying. We can.
I'm asking a simple question. He said he's not an expert.
I'm not an expert, but I'm trying to express what we saw. That the way Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were free with each other back then, you could not see that in that small video. The way Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto deals with other heads of states across the country, or even you know, certain political figures in this country, is very different. There was a timidity I could see around William Ruto, and even as you know, he was being ushered to his vehicle, you could tell that there was a hurriedness with which Uhuru Kenyatta wanted that to end. So I'm not sure whether it has a bearing on the fruitfulness of their discussions or not, but that is just something that we observed.
Okay. Daktari, we're talking about now some of the issues that were raised inside there. We know how Kenya has been impactful, not just in the region, but in the continent as well. In terms of the AUC bid, it is time for the East African region. Kenya has fronted a candidate. Djibouti has done as well. With the convergence of these two leaders, do you think now it will give an opportune time for the ODM leader, former ODM leader, or should I say the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga, or Kenya's AUC candidate, a chance at the seat?
You know, the USC seat is not going to be a Kenyan context. And therefore, even if they met, even if there was some voting, let me speak like a lay person, it's only maybe William Ruto, who is the president, who would vote. So it's only one vote. And when his candidature was launched, I expected an African campaign, like globally, you know. I expected something like that. It's coming too late. It's not yet Uhuru for the Prime Minister. And I don't think, and I don't want to be a prophet of doom, I don't think he's getting the seat in the position. I think he knows.
So what are the indicators that has informed
the indicators are, you can see the campaigns allowed the Djibouti guy. They are more intense and more intentional than ours. You know, if you look at it from even the social media from Kenyans, you know, you'll find some Kenyans complaining, please don't accept this guy, we have not accepted him, he has sold us in our own country. So that political hype in the country escalates to the diaspora. And then once it escalates like that, there are people who are actually robbing. And I don't think the current president is also keen on, you know, the Prime Minister getting that position. Because if he were the kind of a person he is, he would have gone out there. He would have done.
That is what he has been doing. Campaigning for.
I don't think we have seen it and we have felt it, because he is in between a lot of country politics and the outside, you know, the AU, which is, he's looking like, okay, I want you to go, but I also am not keen on you going. But then he is also very keen, if this one doesn't get, if he comes here, what will happen? There is also that fear. Just like what Philip is saying, like their meeting yesterday, it is not supposed to be interpreted by scientists, but you know, our body language, like for example, when viewers are looking at us, they can be able to tell whether we are agitated with each other or whether we are together or not. And the kind of a person the former president is, I don't think he would have refused this to happen. I don't think so. Even if it is going to be talked about the candidature of the Prime Minister or the peace or the unity of the country or whatever. But I know from his position, because there's a lot that has happened, and it has never happened since the time I started voting. I don't know what time, when you started voting, but I've never seen this happen with other presidents. There is a lot of, there was a bit of animosity, you know, downplaying and all that of the former. And then, you know, I think the current regime, the people surrounding the president, they do not tell him the truth. You know, they tell him things are okay when they are not okay. And now he witnessed that in Embu. He witnessed it elsewhere. You know, he is seeing it all over the country. There is some animosity, yet some peace that people are holding, because people have no money as per se, because the economy has not been doing very well, although we are told that it is, you know, trying to progress or something like that. But then the people have not felt it in their pocket. So there is a mixed reaction of whether the meeting happened properly or it didn't happen properly, whether the current president, Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister will get the chairmanship or not. People really do not care, and people are not interested with that. And if you want to know how Kenyans are not interested, look at the Twitters, look at the TikToks, look at the social media handles. Allowed what happened yesterday. People are like, so what? You know, some are, you, President Uhuru, don't sell us, you know. Then you, President Ruto, why are you coming to us, you know. There are two Kenyans now here, and it is them who have created. It's, you know, like the sackings that have been happening around people who are inclined to Uhuru government. They were sacked, of course. You know, I'm one of them. We were removed from the board, you know, Kenyatta National Hospital Board. It's because we were in the other regime. The other people who have been sacked, like the Gachagua allied people, they have been. I was with the former member of parliament for Madeira, and I can speak like that because he is my friend, Onaboelu. He was sacked the other day because he is told he is a sympathizer. Now you wonder who informs policy, who informs governance, who informs presidency around these matters, because whether you are a sympathizer for Philip or not, I should just take you as to what you can deliver for KBC, you know. Simple and clear. I should not take you like you are his sympathizer and he is not my friend and therefore I should remove you. So I think that one, our president has failed, 10-0. That one he has failed. And that one, it is a burden that is going to, he's going to carry up to 2027 because people will not forget. You remember, there were about 700 people. I cannot remember the statistics clearly, but there were over 700 who were sacked. That number, you multiply by just a homestead of about 5 people. You see the multiplication effect. So even if he tries to do whatever he'll try to do, not unless he undo this, it is not going to work. People are still feeling you are our person. The other day, a whole department, a whole, unit for the former deputy president, they were all told to go on compulsory leave. Some may come back, some may not come back. Okay. Still, multiply that. We saw there were about 35. Multiply that by the minimum or average family, 5. Just see the kind of mess that the government is continually doing on its people, and yet, even if he talks with who, there was somebody who was a bit, this was a bit funny. Okay. And he said, even if you want to tell Jomo Kenyatta to wake up and you talk to him, we are not listening to you. What does that tell you? You know when Jomo Kenyatta passed on? 1970s, you can imagine. And somebody, 2024 is talking like that. Maybe they were not even born that time, and that's they're just, being funny. So I think the most important thing as we go forward, as Kenyans, because the government has what it has to do, but as Kenyans, what is our mandate? Our mandate is to keep peace. That is our mandate. First of all, we must be peaceful. We exist peacefully. Number 2, you go to work. Whatever you normally do for your daily bread, go and do it. Because the government will do whatever it has to do. And it will do its flaws, and it will be there. And there is nothing that we are going to do. There are many people who have been speculating of funny things. This government will be there until 2027. The power, it is in the hands of the Kenyan people to either return them or remove them. Leave alone the speculation about IEBC and all that, whatever they are doing, but the power lies with the people. Yes. And of course, as we're coming to a close of this particular topic, which we'll be discussing extensively in the second hour, Philip, it's about the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC. You do know that previously there was a selection panel was in place. Then came another. At the end of the day, it was even discussed in the National Dialogue Committees spearheaded by the Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and the majority leader in the National Assembly, that is Kimani Ichung'wah. And of course, this is not a new phenomenon. We're always here. And the first question to you, Philip, is that why do we have to wait until close to a general election to appoint an IEBC?
It's politics and our Kenyan version of politics. And that question of politics is what influences what we are discussing, even with the political climate, as I bring myself to answer that question. We are now talking about Mount Kenya versus whoever is in government. If it wasn't Gachagua, if it was somebody else from, say, Nyanza, it would be the Nyanza interests are not being factored into government, which is an unfortunate scenario for us. If we continue that in that direction and in that manner, then we will lose ourselves. We will never really get to the real issues. Back to the IEBC. The selection panel, and there have been questions as to who is delaying this process, because the IEBC Act, as amended in July of 2024, provides that the selection panel should already have given us an IEBC commission. But we are now stuck at that selection panel itself, because there are 2 people who say they should be in the panel. One says the process gave birth to his nomination to the panel. The other says they are the rightful nominee to the panel. And we are a litigious country, because every simple thing that could have otherwise been solved alternatively, we are in court. And the courts are, tied by the law. Yes. They are tied by the interests of the parties that come before it. So if an individual goes to court and they're able to demonstrate on the first instance that their rights have been infringed, the process to which they were subjected to is unconstitutional, then the courts have nothing but to halt that process so that they can adjudicate on the rights of this individual. We have had political actors, some members of parliament and other politicians saying it is the courts, and it was unfortunate that the deputy president, Kithure Kindiki, mentioned that it is the courts who are frustrating this process. That was the effect of his statements in Navaholo, I think 2 days ago. And for the political class to say that it is the courts who are frustrating this process because the courts have now injuncted that process, it is totally dishonest. Because number one, the composition of that panel is 9 members. You have 1 member nominated by the Law Society of Kenya, another nominated by ISPAC, the Institute of Accountants. You have 2 individuals nominated by the Interreligious Council. And then you have 5 people from that composition coming from political parties. You have 2 coming from the majority and minority party in parliament. They are nominated through that caucus. And then you have the political parties liaison committee that nominates again from the minority party, majority party, and a non-parliamentary party. Now you have a scenario where the minority party or non-parliamentary parties nominated an individual through a competitive process. But the political parties are the ones now frustrating this process because they decided to short-circuit that competitive process. Dr. Muli says he was the winner. There was a vote, he was the winner, he has demonstrated that. Somebody else was nominated in his place outside that process. He has a right to go to court to say, look, this was a process that was competitive, my rights have been infringed. Even though it may appear as though, you know, he's fighting this too much, I mean, there's a personal stake, which there is, by the way. We do not say it as much, but because we are a very corrupt country, it is very possible that, you know, some money could change hands for some favors, because we know that IEBC commissioners over time have not come in just because, you know, they are the best. It is because certain political actors have wanted their person in that commission. It is the very reason why you have political parties being the majority in the selection panel. It is a messy arrangement, but we are used to, you know, messy arrangements. So the current impasse that we have can only be solved by 2 actors. And that is Dr. Muli and Kalonzo Musyoka, who we have been told was fronting the other individual to the nomination panel. As simple as that. If the process was credible, it was transparent, it was competitive, as the law says, and Dr. Muli was the individual to go into the IEBC selection panel, then let that happen. Yeah, and it takes a few minutes for consensus to be built around this area. But because, you know, there are a lot of interests, a lot of money interests, a lot of political interests, people want to determine who will get into this IEBC commission. We are now in this impasse. The politicians will come out and tell us they want a transparent process, they want an IEBC that is independent. But you cannot have an independent commission when you now have people haggling over who will choose who gets into the commission. So there's a lot of dishonesty again in that space. But if that specific issue is handled, then the only thing that will then happen after the nomination, the nominees have been sent to the Parliamentary Service Commission, those names will be sent to the President for him now to put that panel in place. As simple as that. Within 7 days, that panel is gazetted, and they begin the process of getting us new IEBC commissioners.
And of course, you even heard yesterday what Philip is talking about at the SKM Center. The Wiper Party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, said it is not his party that is stopping this particular issue. But you see, these are two members. One was in the previous election panel. Another one was appointed by Kalonzo Musyoka to be the second panel. Those are the two people who are in court currently. So is it not wise even for the Wiper Party leader to tell one of them to withdraw the case?
You see, matters IEBC, we have come a long way. And they're revolving around three issues. One, we have the structural issue, then the operational issue, and the legal framework. And coming from the NADCO report, you realize that the NADCO report recommended for IEBC to be reconstituted. Yes. On the other hand, in terms of legal matter, legal framework, it recommended that the registration and policies around the election be guided properly or reconstituted. You also remember the Cherera 4. You know, the Cherera 4, we do not know what exactly the sin that they committed exactly, but they were ousted, and what we are living with is the ghost, you know, of the same. We also saw how the other commissioners left the office, you know. Some resigned and others actually were left in office. And therefore, IEBC has a myriad of challenges that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. I'll be coming back to you. Sorry for that. And of course, we want to take our viewers to another function that is currently happening. It is the 7th Annual EAC Secretary General's Forum highlights. And of course, none other than the Head of Public Service, Mr. Felix Koskei, is currently addressing that particular event. Let's listen in.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to join you so many distinguished colleagues, public servants, entrepreneurs, and leaders from various sectors as well as every aspect of human endeavor. As I thank the Secretary General of the community for a generous invitation to preside over this opening ceremony, let me welcome you to Kenya. Please allow us to reciprocate the warm hospitality you afford us when we visit you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we meet at a watershed moment in the life of the East African community. The 25th anniversary of any human endeavor is an important juncture. It is a time to solemnly take stock of the road traveled at that particular point in time, and a time to introspect and ponder what hurdles and fortunes may await in both the reasonably foreseeable and the unforeseen and unseen future. Whatever our generational experience over the last 25 years of the EAC and through the contours of change that have characterized this time, we meet at a moment of promise and peril, not only regionally, but globally. I believe we all learned from the COVID-19 pandemic that serious challenges do not respect state borders, and that is not the only threat that troubles us. From setting tariffs, health and food safety standards, to communication and infrastructure, the good of the region demands of us that we find enduring answers to its challenges. This is because the success of nations is no longer bound by the lines drawn on maps, but by the strength of the partnership forged across them. Therefore, the theme of this forum, a resilient and fully integrated East Africa, harnessing opportunities in the borderless community, is most apt, as it indeed affirms that boundaries no longer limit opportunity, but rather define the strength of our collective potential. To shine some spotlight on where we are. Our president has recently been elected chair of the East African Community. He, just like his colleagues, heads of state, is deeply committed to regional integration. He deeply shares in the understanding that the prosperity, freedom, and security of the region require deeper integration and closer consultation. The chair is ready to build on the achievements realized by his predecessors to lead the effort. I therefore look forward very warmly to his full term. That term, ladies and gentlemen, calls for a fundamental shift in how we govern, deliver services, and engage the people of the community we serve. Today, I'll focus on three critical pillars that will enable us to achieve our vision of a resilient, integrated, and borderless East African. That is accountability, efficiency, and service delivery. These pillars matter because they are the foundation upon which we can build a prosperous, secure, and inclusive growth. Accountability first. Governments must remain answerable to their citizens. Public resources must be used effectively to meet the needs of the people. In the context of the East African community, accountability is essential for fostering trust among partner states and ensuring the successful implementation of the regional initiatives. The East African community has consistently demonstrated its commitment to accountability, as evidenced by its history of clean audits. This achievement is a testament to the community's dedication to transparency, sound financial management, and good governance. Furthermore, the timely disbursement of partner states' contributions remain a critical step towards ensuring the smooth implementation of regional projects and programs. However, we must go further. Governments must adopt transparent budgeting processes, regularly report on the use of public funds, and strengthen oversight mechanisms to prevent corruption and inefficiency from creeping in. Citizen participation is key to accountability. When citizens are informed and engaged, they can hold their leaders to account. Platforms like this forum, as well as other EAC initiatives such as regional trade fair, the Juakali, cultural events, Jama Fest, and sports events, East African Community Games, are excellent examples of how we can empower citizens to play an active role in governance. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, efficiency in governance is about maximizing the impact of limited resources. In a region like ours, where resources are stretched thin, efficiency is not just a desirable, but it is imperative. The EAC has already taken commendable steps to enhance institutional efficiency. For example, the collaboration with the Eastern and Southern Africa Management Institute and the European Union to conduct capacity building sessions is a significant effort to strengthen operational capacity. Additionally, the adoption of a new organizational structure and the restructuring or recruitment of 22 staff members demonstrate a commitment to improving the community's ability to deliver on its mandate. Efficiency is also about how we deliver services to our citizens. The East African passport, which standardizes regional travel, is a shining example of how efficient systems can make life easier for our people and promote regional integration. Similarly, EAC's focus on trade facilitation at regional ports and cross-border trade involving women, youth, and vulnerable groups highlights the importance of streamlining processes to unlock economic potential. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the second pillar is service delivery. Ultimately, the success of any government or regional body is measured by its ability to deliver services that improve the lives of its people. Health, education, infrastructure, trade, and service delivery must be at the heart of our efforts. The EAC's achievements in areas such as interregional trade, infrastructure development, and youth empowerment are commendable. The community has also made significant strides in fostering peace and security, as well as energy development, which are critical enablers of economic growth and prosperity. Furthermore, the recent accession of the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Federal Republic of Somalia as full members of the EAC is a testament to the community's growing influence and commitment to inclusivity. Challenges remain: delays in project implementation, inadequate funding, and this coordination between partner states still hinder service delivery. But there are answers. The diversification of funding sources through public-private partnership, engagement with multilateral banks, the prioritization of climate-resilient infrastructure, all these and more can help mobilize the resources needed to deliver our commitments. None of these efforts will succeed without the third pillar, active participation of our citizens and stakeholders. A fully integrated, borderless East Africa is not just a vision for governments and heads of state. It is a vision for the people. We must therefore prioritize feasibility and sensitization to ensure that citizens understand and support the EAC initiatives. The adoption of the EAC communication policy, the use of social media and media training are steps in the right direction. However, we must do more to engage citizens at the grassroots level, particularly women, youth, and vulnerable groups who are often the most affected by regional policies. Citizen participation is not just about consultation, it is about empowerment. By involving citizens in decision-making processes, we can ensure that our policies are inclusive, equitable, and responsive to the needs of the people. The EAC is one of the fastest growing regional economic communities in Africa, a fact that underscores its potential as a driver of economic transformation. The community's focus on key pillars such as custom union, common market, and monetary union has laid a strong foundation for regional integration. The midterm review of the 6th EAC development strategy has further highlighted the need to expedite the implementation of these pillars to unlock the full potential of the region. Let us draw inspiration from the progress we have made so far, including the joint hosting of AFCON 2027, which will foster unity among partner states and build on future initiatives such as joint infrastructure projects, peace, security efforts, and social integration programs. These milestones remind us of what we can achieve when we work together. As we look to the future, let us remember that the journey toward a fully integrated and borderless East Africa is a shared responsibility. Governments must be accountable, must be efficient and committed to delivering services that meet the needs of their people. Citizens, in turn, must be informed, engaged, and empowered to play an active role in shaping the future of our region. Ladies and gentlemen, the architects of our nations undertook the noble task of securing political liberation. Soon thereafter, they commenced the defining mission of our time, the economic renaissance of our people. In tribute to their timeless call, our duty is to is clear: to steer the East African community towards the shared aspiration of deeper integration, one that enhances the prosperity of families across our region and unlocks boundless opportunities for our enterprises. Today, we honor the visionaries who fervently championed the rebirth of the East African community and the many who have steadfastly supported its continued integration. In tribute to these luminaries, I encourage you to be bold, open, and innovative in your discourses. Propose practical and workable strategies to overcome the challenges facing the region in order to accelerate harnessing the vast opportunities and rich endowments of the partner states. As I conclude, permit me to close with a single, simple, and request. Let us all, governments, institutions, and citizens alike, to commit ourselves to accountability, efficiency, and service delivery. Together, it is our shared duty to build a resilient, integrated, and borderless East Africa that leaves no one behind. One people, one destiny. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my humble duty to declare the 7th EAC Secretary General's Forum officially inaugurated and wish you all fruitful deliberations over the next 2 days. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chief of Staff. Thank you very much, Honorable SG. This is not a vote of thanks. This is just to move us swiftly.
Well, that is the head of public service speaking at the 7th annual East Africa Secretary General's Forum held here in the capital. And of course, they're set to discuss a number of issues. The event is still ongoing, but right now we want to take a short commercial break, but we'll be back with more. Don't go too far.
Hayuko nyanya, hayuko.
Ati nini?
Hivi kumbe mtu weza kulala ukiamka ukifungua macho ukuta umekufa.
Adamu ukimwangalia ana upungufu wote wa kiafya huyo.
Upungufu si lazima wa afya, unaweza pungukiwa hata akili.
Unasemaje?
Nani nakwambia kwa huko ndani ya nyumba yangu kuna kazi ukija utaajiriwa?
Ninakuona tangu asubuhi umeamka hauna raha. Kwani kuna shida yote?
Nahisi kama kuna kitu kibaya kitafanyika.
Sasa mbona wa mzigo mwanamume wewe ubebeki?
Mimi nimekuwa mzigo. Chumba chake kimejaa harufu ya kifo.
I never heard the music so sweet. I repeat.
Wagwan, me brethren, big things are going. Remember, each and every Monday we have to shell down the place with nothing but the best of smooth way the vibes in your favorite station. You know these things, man.
Alafu kila Tuesday, kata simu tupo side, giving you Kenyan music from the 254.
And of course, you can spice up your Wednesday by enjoying blazing hot hip-hop and R&B jams.
We don't got no label. She say she want bottles.
Vibes and vibes as we go all across Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, all the way to Tanzania to give you nothing but the best on Afro Thursday. Make sure you make a date with us each and every single Friday with me, DJ_Liza Diva,
DJ Colda,
and me, Wanjiko. This is Club One Extra.
Unanifanya nisikie kunyongwa. Hadija ai, mani especially ukisonga.
Thank you for joining us on Healthy Living. Stay connected to Voice of America at voanews.com. A look at your kidneys and how they impact your health. and an expert discusses chronic kidney disease and how to protect yourself. And Ivorian psychologist Noor Bakayoko shares some insights on bullying and what can be done.
It's important to avoid major events or major health crises.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. My guests are still here with me. That is Dr. Julia Chege, governance expert, as well as Philip Mwangalia, governance and law expert. We're still talking about the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC reconstitution. It has a matter that has been discussed widely from the politicians to the public itself, given that IEBC is yet to be fully constituted with commissioners yet to be appointed. Even the selection panel has not even sat for a single day, awaiting a court proceedings that is happening at the corridors of justice. Of course, the Wiper Party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, spoke yesterday and clearly said that Wiper is not holding the process back, given that it is two candidates from that particular party that is currently, we are seeing an embroiled type of thing where the two candidates, that is Augustus Muli and Ambassador Koki, trying to outdo each other and ensure that they are in that second panel that has been constituted. And of course, earlier on, Dr. you were talking about in terms of the structural challenges IEBC has been facing. Now, the question is, do we change how IEBC works?
First of all, it is very important to actually reawaken Kenyans that the constitutional crisis that we are experiencing in terms of IEBC didn't happen yesterday because Uhuru and Ruto actually met. No, it didn't happen yesterday, and it didn't happen because the churches have now started talking. Early this year, to be precise, in March, that is when the gap of when we are supposed to be reviewing boundaries expired, and therefore we are living in a constitutional crisis already. We, as per the law, we do not have constituencies, we do not have boundaries because that mandate expired that time. But to bring back to our conversation on the structural issues on IEBC, we all know what happened at Bomas of Kenya 2022. And I was on the topic where I was talking about the Chedela 4, whereby they requested or actually asked for an audit of the 2022 general election, which did not happen, you know, it did not happen. And therefore, that matter has actually metamorphosized from Bomas of Kenya. Now we went to Parliament, and then Parliament, it has now gone again to political parties, and then it is in court. Because where we are as a country, the truth of the matter is there are several court cases that have been there, and the last one was actually heard, and a determination is supposed to be happening on 24th of January 2025. What that means to Kenyans is that we will not have an IEBC until 25th of January 2025. That is very important. And that now brings us to the topic whereby if IEBC is a national matter, why can't it be expedited the way they expedite the deputy president, the former deputy president Gachagua issue? You know, it seems we have lost the game, and that is why I'm not buying the idea of it is this political party leader who is actually the impediment of having an IEBC, the commissioners. I'm not buying that because the buck stops with the president. If he really want IEBC to be reconstituted and structured, and the panel, because the NADCO report actually recommended from the 7 commissioners, they be about 9, so that the selection panel can be expanded and also for legislative purposes. Now, I wonder if we know very well as a country that unless a miracle happens, unless something happens, there is a court case that and the determination is set to be read, the judgment, on 24th of January 2025. Not unless there's a miracle, and the miracle could mean political goodwill and the presidential goodwill. If he is really interested in us having a commission, we will have it. Unless unless that miracle happens, Kenyans are only going to have, depending with their determination, how it is, the judgment, how it is going to be. We are only going to have an IEBC commissioners process started early February next year or March. That is the truth of the matter. So it is not, it is the president need to understand that Kenyans know this. This information is in the public domain.
But what can the president do?
The president, what he did, the hand that was there and that influenced Parliament and Senate to actually do what they did to remove the deputy president. I mean, because he has set that precedence, that is the way it should go. Because we are already in a constitutional crisis. And not just that, IEBC. By the way, having IEBC is one thing. Now, we need our young people have their identity cards. I don't know whether you are aware, 2022, I was a candidate for Member of Parliament Kangema. I was number 2. And I thank the people of Kangema for giving me that platform, you know. So when I speak about election reforms and the process that happens before people are elected, I actually know the process just too well, because until the ballot, imagine it doesn't just, you don't just fry. There's a lot of issues here. And I also want to thank KBC, because they used to call me for Changamko. I think it was that Kiswahili show that I was speaking Kiswahili Kikuyu, and somehow I was able to communicate to my people, you know. So I thank you so much, you know. So the back to our topic, the truth of the matter is, unless we look at those legislative processes, we are not going to have an IEBC. Okay. There is no way. And the president should, I don't know, Mr. President, I know you are looking at us and you are listening to us. Why can't you just expedite this issue? There are so many people. You know, I know the president, the political parties were supposed to give their people, but that is something. It's a drop in the ocean that can be taken, you know, very fast, because Azimio is supposed to give 2, Kenya Kwanza is supposed to give 5. You know, like, it is so easy. It's so easy. It can be done, but because they want to delay this. Remember, it is law. Law says that we must have an IEBC commission, commissioners working 18 months before the election. Now, we are 3 years to election. Look at the process of getting these commissioners before they are taken to Parliament, before they are vetted. Maybe one will fall and then we go back. I mean, why do we want to cripple ourselves on things that we can be able to do? I ask one simple question. The people surrounding the president, why are you lying to him?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Make
us understand. We do have a court case that is currently active. We've just even heard from Daktari here, clearly stating until the 25th of January 2025. The question is, what can the president do to sway the courts? Because you see, it is 2 candidates from the Wiper Party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka's camp, who are eyeing the same seat.
The president cannot and should not do anything to sway the courts. And I think in as much as he has interfered and intermeddled with other processes, including Parliament before, this is not a process that he should interfere with. Now, the current set of affairs is this, that the minority coalition under the political parties liaison committee was supposed to, you know, nominate one individual. They had an election, a mini election, where the 2 Mulis, incident as they're both Mulis, the 2 Mulis were contesting that election. I saw a polling result that showed that Augusta's Muli got, I think it was 16 votes against the other Mulis, Koki Mulis, 7 votes. So it appeared that from that process, he was the nominee. And because the IEBC Act provides that the process of selecting nominees to the selection panel should be competitive. That is the competitive process that gave rise to Augusta's Muli. Now, where Kalonzo Musyoka's faction came up with Koki Muli as the nominee who did not win that in that process beats us. And that is why now we have the court cases challenging Koki Muli's selection or nomination to that selection panel. The only thing that could happen between now and January 2025 is if the minority coalition under the political parties liaison committee decided to go by the process that they had sanctioned. And that is going by the votes that were the result of that process. It is as simple as them saying we are now forwarding the name of Augustus Muli instead of Koki Muli because Augustus Muli won that process. As simple as that. We will not have to wait up to 2025 for us to get the determination of the court in that matter. So it has nothing to do with the president. It has everything to do with that minority coalition. It's a bottleneck that needs to be opened up. Number two, when we are talking about the timelines, the IEBC Act provides a very rough timeline on when these processes should be completed. If, say, the minority coalition decides that they will come to their senses, if Kalonzo Musyoka decides that he will come to his senses and Augustus Muli is forwarded as the nominee from that coalition, then within 7 days, the president appoints that selection panel. So he will gazette within 7 days. The panel will then hit the ground running as soon as they are gazetted because it's a matter of national concern, and given the urgency of the matter, they will then put out applications for the IEBC Commission. They will then shortlist, interview. The public must be involved in the interviews. The interviews will be public. After they are done with their interviews and they arrive at a list, they are mandated by law to forward 2 names for the position of chairperson to the president, 9 names for the position of commissioners to the president. And that whole process should happen within 90 days. So given the urgency, they could expedite, because I do not think that we need 90 days to conduct interviews or we need 90 days to shortlist. Some of the people who are interested in the IEBC may already have put their papers together. They're just waiting for the call. So we could take a very short time, but the law says within 90 days. Then the president decides to pick, and I think this is a problem. We should not have gone that direction, but we have it as law now, that the president picks from the 2 individuals who he will nominate as chairperson. My thinking is that the selection panel should just have arrived at 1 individual. And then he decides to pick 6 people who should now serve as commissioners from the 9. And then he forwards the names to Parliament. On receipt of these names in Parliament, the Public Approvals Parliamentary Rules or Act, Parliamentary Approval Act, provides that Parliament has to conduct a hearing to approve these names. They also have a period within which they should act on these names. Parliament, they have gone on recess.
Yes, on recess.
But because, again, it's a matter of national urgency, and given the Gachagua urgency that was employed in Senate and National Assembly, they could be recalled to handle specifically the issue of the IEBC commissioners. They have 28 days to do this. So they can reject or approve. If they do nothing after receiving that the nomination from the president, then the nominees will be considered approved. That is what the law says. If they reject, they will send a memorandum to the president saying we have rejected this person for this reason. If it is 1 individual, the president can still, he has a pool of 3 remaining from the 9 commissioners who are forwarded by the selection panel. He can choose either of those that he has and return the name to Parliament. But that is a scenario that we don't want to get into, where the president has forwarded names, Parliament rejects, and then we have a ping pong between Parliament and the president. Because we know the president controls Parliament, the names that he should forward should be approved. Because again, they could treat us to some suckers where the president says, I forwarded to Parliament. Parliament is doing the independent job. And then Parliament comes back and says, no, we do not approve for this reason. This person does not meet the moral or integrity test. Send the names back, and then now you need the selection panel to come back to to the drawing board. So if we do not go that direction, then that is 90 days, another 30 within 3 months or 4 months. Because we should not drag the process. Parliament can do this within a day. They have demonstrated to us that they can approve, cabinet secretaries within 2 days. They can do this within 2 days. Okay. I think within 3 months, we should have an IEBC in place. If we have or bear any fidelity to the law and to the Constitution, this is a timeline that we can adhere to. But there is this bottleneck here that is a political question. The minority coalition that we now know has some control within the ranks of Wiper. I think there may have been an agreement in the Azimio coalition that for the IEBC selection panel, Wiper has something to say about it. So I think that bottleneck needs to be addressed. Kalonzo Musyoka and the minority coalition needs to be called out. Augustus Muli is from the NLP, the National Liberty Party.
Yes.
They also need to come out clear. This is something that can be addressed even by the registrar of political parties, who is a presidential appointee. But it is a consensus that can be built around that area. Yes.
And of course, we'll continue with our conversation. Talk to us on our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1 and at Abdiaziz Hashim 2. We're taking another breather. When we come back, we'll continue with this conversation that will be entering its final leg. So don't go too far. Here is the cabinet in terms of Beth Mugo, where she came from and how she rose to the ranks of that particular administration.
Beth Mugo was born at Ishaweri Village, Gatundu, Kiambu County. She lived with her parents and siblings in an extended family that included the founding father of Kenya, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Mugo pursued her elementary education at Kahugoine and Ngenda primary schools in the present-day Gatundu South constituency before proceeding to Mambere in Kikuyu, Kiambu County. She joined Kambui Teachers College in 1956, where she acquired a National Teacher's Certificate in 1957. She served as headmistress at Kiganjo Primary School from 1958 to 1959. In 1959, following her getting married, Mugo left for the USA to pursue further studies. She was a beneficiary of the Airlift Africa project, pioneered by Tom Mboya and Julius Gikonyo in collaboration with the former president of the US, JF Kennedy. While in the US, Mugo studied for a diploma in business management from Goldie Beacom College in Delaware. She joined Voice of Kenya, now the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, where she held various top positions between 1964 and 1970. Her first attempt to join Parliament was in 1992 under the umbrella of Kibaki's party, the Democratic Party, of which she was one of the founder members and the only woman in the interim National Executive Committee when DP was founded. However, in 1992 elections, there was strong support for the Forum for the Restoration of Democracy Asili for the Asili Party in Nairobi and central Kenya. She did not make it to Parliament that year. In the 1997 general election, she contested on a Social Democratic Party ticket, a party whose presidential candidate was Charity Ngilu. Although the rest of Nairobi was united under DP, she won the Dagoretti parliamentary seat with a landslide, becoming the first woman to be elected to Parliament in Kenya's capital. The 1997 elections culminated in a record 9 women members of Parliament. Women MPs came together and established the Kenya Women Parliamentary Group, with Mugo becoming the founding chairperson for the group. She was again overwhelmingly elected to Parliament in 2002 on a NAC ticket and appointed an Assistant Minister for Tourism and Wildlife. She was later moved to the Ministry of Education as an Assistant Minister in charge of Basic Education. Much later in 2005, while serving as an Assistant Minister for Education, she went back to the USA to study for an executive education program at Harvard University. The program specialized in leadership and development in managing political and economic reform. Her passion for women's empowerment is apparent in her career even before she became a politician. She successfully defended her parliamentary seat on a Party of National Unity ticket in 2007. John Carrier, the Orange Democratic Movement candidate, filed a petition against her re-election. The petition was later dismissed with a court ruling that voting and counting of votes was free and fair. After elections, Kibaki named Mugo Cabinet Minister for Health and Sanitation in the Government of National Unity. Her last position in PNU was the National Chairperson of the PNU Women Committee and the patron of the PNU Alliance that brought together PNU, Kalonzo Musyoka's ODM Kenya, and other PNU affiliate parties in the coalition government. As Minister for Public Health and Sanitation, Mugo steered initiatives aimed at disease prevention and control, reduction of maternal and child mortality, and taking healthcare services closer to the population. In 2007 to 2013, she served as Member of Parliament for Dagoretti South constituency. She was nominated as Senator in 2017. Mugo, a breast cancer survivor, embodies stoicism, resilience, and unyielding pursuit for women's empowerment. Jackie Wambiru, The Cabinet.
And of course, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Our conversation continues. We're talking about IEBC reconstitution and why it has taken that long. Continue sending in your feedbacks. We'll be sampling them at the end of this particular show. And also, we're keeping an eye on various events that are currently unfolding in various parts of the country to keep you updated ahead of our various bulletins that we'll be displaying in the next few hours or so. My guests are still here with me. That is Dr. Julia Chege, governance expert, as well as Philip Mangale, governance and law expert. Let me come back to you now, Dr. We were talking about how like a constituency like Manisa has not had a member of parliament for almost a year now. Yeah. And the last time the CEO, that is Marjan, he was before a committee, clearly told the committee he cannot gazette. Then it raises the question, do we change the laws that guide how a CEO of the commission should be behaving and the powers he should have as opposed to the chair? Should we make them the same?
As per the law in Kenya currently, we may not be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And the powers that are within the CEO's position is administrative, clearly mm-hmm. administrative. And therefore, the commissioners are the ones who are able to run like the electoral processes in a day-to-day life in our country. And therefore, I pity the CEO because mm-hmm. his hands are tied. He is not able to expedite as much as he means well for Kenya, he means mm-hmm. well for the people. He has his managers, he has his senior managers, he has his directors, mm-hmm. but his hands are tied by law. And the radical thing that he could do, which is very, very extremely radical, is to disband the secretariat because mm-hmm. he is not able to move, he is not able to do anything. But from where we sit, I don't see him doing that because mm-hmm. that would mean losing a job, that would mean maybe going to court, yes. that would mean so much, you know. Mm-hmm. And therefore, that is why we are saying it is really unfortunate, and we are really sorry for those constituencies and the wards that have no representation. It is their right to have a representation. It is their right to have someone to speak on their behalf. But then our political temperature and our political way of doing things in our country has actually superseded our issues that are supposed to be looked at in a more serious way. Like, for example, the IEBC. Politics has superseded its process, you know, and that is why we are saying this process, if it has to happen, it has to be void of politics, you know. Until we separate politics and the constitutional crisis that we have, we will still have the challenge come next year. But we have seen miracles happen, you know, and we saw what happened. And I'm still going back there. If the president, for sure, he's interested in this, he is going to actually expedite this. And because he has actually have the registrators, all of them in his hands, he can be able to do this. Even 7 days is a long time. I mean, Gachagwa's issue didn't take 7 days. It took actually 3 days, you know, and that is a very serious issue. I mean, those are people who have been elected by the majority, the people, the citizens, you know, and they're the majority in Kenya. So this one is a walkover, is a walk in the park. I don't see why we are doing this, not unless the president has something. And I'm actually bringing it squarely on him, because even if we do not want him to interfere with the 25th of January date on judgment, he has a hand. He is able to do that, and we have seen that. And because this is a matter of national interest, I'm sure we can have, we have our lawyer here, Philip, can be able to advise us. Can we have maybe a submission or whatever they call them, those, so that we can be able to bring the date, you know, closer, so that we rest this matter, because until we do this, Kenyans are still asking, do we still want 2027 general election? And remember, there was a senator who had brought this a certain bill on the extension of term limit. So we are not very sure, and we cannot be able to trust them. And remember, NADICO was supposed to be able to help people have the reforms and the trust issues now are very divergent, you know. So we need to look into that.
And of course, in terms of what Daktari is talking about, in terms of the constitutional crisis that we're in when it comes to the boundaries delimitation, I want to focus on this particular word, not just Banisa and other words that are constituency, that is Banisa and other words that are missing a representative. So in that particular scenario, Philip, as a lawyer, what happens to those words and constituencies that are expected to receive funds from the county government, funds from the national government as well?
It's unfortunate what our politics has done to these groups of people. The wards that were supposed to have you know, had by-elections, the constituencies that were supposed to have had by-elections, they are effectively unrepresented. And that is a big problem, because you are disenfranchising these individuals completely. Because if you're supposed to have representation in the National Assembly, which you do not have, you're supposed to have representation in the County Assembly, which you do not have, and that has been going on for a very long period, then you are telling these individuals that they are not worthy of representation. And that is flouting the Constitution to the high heavens. One of the things that I think we need to address going forward is how our institutions appreciate matters of national importance. The National Assembly has their own interpretation of what amounts to issues of national importance and how urgently they should respond to those issues. Our judiciary has its own interpretation of what amounts to matters of national importance and how urgently they should dispose of those matters. The backlog and you know, case log notwithstanding, there has to be an urgency with which the judiciary attends to issues of national importance. The cases that we are talking about in court, in as much as we appreciate that we have too many cases in court and you have too many of these cases that are considered urgent, that parties themselves have pleaded with the court to deal with them with a matter of urgency, there are certain cases of national importance that should not be taking months, that should not even be taking weeks. Elsewhere with other jurisdictions, and again I appreciate the fact that other jurisdictions have unique circumstances, they have unique contexts. You have a scenario where the question of the IEBC has come into play, and we have months before a determination is made. We have experienced in the past with the presidential petitions, and I think it's because the law provides for a specific timeline within which a presidential petition should be disposed with or of. But with matters where you do not have a legal timeline in law, courts are taking their time. This is a matter that I think parties should have been called upon to submit within 3 hours or so. If a judge is able to manage their court effectively, within 3 hours, you are able to have parties submit on what is true to them, and a court can then make a determination on that. So there's that needs to be addressed. It's not just with the Koki Muli and Augustus Muli issue and IEBC. There are too many other matters that should be addressed in the same vein. But now coming to the issue of delimitation, it is no question that this people who belong to the wards and constituencies where by-elections should have been held have been disenfranchised. On delimitation of boundaries, we do not yet have a constitutional crisis, in my view. Article 89 is clear on when delimitation should be done, which period the IEBC should conduct the delimitation. The only challenge that we would then face is, because delimitation is a protracted process, it is an elaborate process where the IEBC comes up with a report after delimitation, presents that report to Parliament. Public participation is also undertaken, because you can't just decide that we want this constituency to be cut in half. You have to engage in public participation. Because that process takes a slightly longer period, you will then fall outside the 18-month period that the Constitution provides, within which you are supposed to conduct the delimitation. You can't conduct delimitation in excess of 18 months before a general election. So the delimitation should end at the 18-month mark before a general election. So that is the only challenge that the IEBC would face, because commissioners are coming in, they have a lot to handle. You have the by-elections that they still need to act upon before the general election. They also have the delimitation question, because the Secretariat cannot unilaterally conduct delimitation of boundaries. They may get into a fix with the constitutional timelines. But again, if the Marjan Secretariat has been doing some groundwork, it is possible that that could be done within the timelines that the Constitution provides. We're talking about the general election in August of 2027. They should have done that delimitation by June of 2025. So there's that challenge. So if we do not have an IEBC by the end of January or February, then there will be very little time to conduct delimitation, because delimitation must involve public participation. I do not think we have a constitutional crisis as yet, but we can walk ourselves there if we want to. We have a period where we can actually do things right and avert a crisis that would arise. And even if we got into a place where the delimitation would not have been done, while some may argue that that may then present a constitutional crisis, it does not prevent us from getting into a general election. Because the proponents, as Dr. has mentioned, the proponents of an extension of term limits may get an opportunity there to say, because we have not done delimitation, we can't go into a general election. But there's nothing that would then prevent us from going into a general election, given the circumstances that we are in now. So we are not in a constitutional crisis, but if we continue with the laissez-faire approach that we have taken, the lackadaisical manner we are taking this process with, then we could walk ourselves into a constitutional crisis.
We've just raised something important before I go to Daktari. In terms of, you just said we're a country of litigation. Aside from the election, would we not see as much as the process will be concluded for this election panel, the commissioners are appointed, we have seen a knack of this where Kenyans have a right to go to the courts to challenge some of these decisions that are being made. Are you foreseeing, or are we foreseeing that particular scenario where the commissioners will be appointed, but you'll see somebody going to court and trying to halt this particular exercise, clearly stating some of the mishaps, the illegalities that led to the appointment?
It is possible, and that will definitely happen. And we are a litigious state because our constitution gives us that power. Before 2010, we would not be doing these things. We would not be litigating on the Bill of Rights or on the constitution itself. But the Constitution of Kenya 2010 gives us the freedom to do this, the freedom to approach court and say this has not been done in the right manner. The motivations notwithstanding. The motivations are then assessed, after the court has taken a chance to look at whatever petition is before it. Now, if somebody were to go to court and seek an injunction to injunct this whole process, it will now be up to the judiciary, and I guess now the Chief Justice should look into this national importance question, because if you have a process that is time-bound, it should not matter that somebody has presented a petition before court. They have a right to do that. But it is how expeditious the court will then engage on these matters that then will determine whether we are suffocating the process or actually enabling it. If, for example, the Chief Justice decides that any constitutional question touching on the IEBC, on an already time-bound question on the Constitution, should be determined within 7 days. Here, if there's a bench to be set up, then it has to be set up immediately, and she gazettes rules saying if it is a matter of constitutional importance, national importance, a time-bound issue, then that matter should be determined within 7 days. That can be done. She has the power to gazette practice directions and rules governing, the conduct of the constitutional division of the High Court, for example. So this is something that can be done, but it takes some kind of revolutionary approach, forward thinking from the judiciary.
And of course, Daktari, we're coming to an end of our program here. Just give us your final thought on some of the recommendations that can be put in place, given that you're a governance expert. What can be changed at the end of the day to ensure that IEBC, aside from the political hand that is being played, what are these recommendations that can be put in place to ensure that IEBC is operating optimally?
Okay, one, the impediment that we have currently in Kenya is that Kenya is both under the rule of law and politics at the same time, and governance and direction rests on the rule of law, and therefore it is important we constitute the IEBC, because that is what the Kenyan people would like, and that is what is supposed to be done. Nevertheless, we have the discussions and the delays that are happening in Parliament, and because they are politically instigated, they're the ones that are actually affecting our country, and therefore I would like to appeal to our legislators, when that matter comes to on their table, they should be able to speeden it so that we have an IEBC. Lastly, we saw the High Court, the Supreme Court judge pronounce himself and asking himself that we have systems that sometimes are not working. And a case in point is when they were trying to file the petition of the former president, the former deputy president petition, and it was the system crumpled and all that. And he was trying to tell us that we should be able to foresee what is likely to happen in 2027 if we do not have an IEBC. And those are minds that we trust in this country, and we look up to them. And therefore, it is important as a country we shun politics, and we get to know what is actually supposed to be done, like the IEBC issue. As much as now Wakili here is trying to allude into the fact that we are not in a constitutional crisis, we are actually likely to just walk into it, without knowing, and therefore it is important. The president has to make sure we have an active IEBC, and then our young people must be given identity cards, because we want our Gen Zs to vote come 2027, because that is the only way we can be able to have the good government that we purport to be wanting, and that is how we can be able to change our politics if we have our young people vote. And I'm talking like that because I have political interest in Murang'a County, and I have been going around and asking our young people. They are telling me from January they have not been able to get a simple documentation, an identity card. It's a crisis that we'll maybe come to talk about next year. We've been talking about this IEBC this year, and I hope this matter rests now. And I want also to wish our people happy Jamhuri Day. And a happy Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And let's be safe on our roads, and let's drive carefree and merry carefree, and share with the less fortunate. Thank you.
Indeed, wise words there.
Dr. has already concluded the show with Merry Christmas.
As you conclude, Philip, quickly.
Very quickly, I think the political question has some history behind it. One of the things that, and now just borrowing from the ID question, one of the things that we ought to do, this should be a no-brainer. We should not be having a scenario where you need to register as a voter. The acquisition of a Kenya national identity card should give you the right to vote. Once you get your identification card, you should be automatically registered as a voter. That we need to address, so that we are not pegging voter registration to the IEBC, so that IEBC needs to conduct voter registration every year. That should not happen. Number two, and this we borrowed from the colonialists. Almost all colonial interests of the British, the former British colonies, employ something called first past the post method of election. So the election happens, and I think we have been conditioned to think that that is the only way democracy works, that the person who has the majority votes is the automatic winner. But the democracies across the world that have adopted numerous ways of election. And I think this model is hurting us more than it is benefiting us. We could adopt, there are over 6 methods of elections that have been adopted elsewhere. You have alternative votes, you have a systemic and preferential voting system. I mean, there's a myriad of election models. I think it's time we changed our model, because this model that we have now is predatory. People are after that majority. And once you get the majority, you can do anything you want with the resources that have been entrusted to you. That is a problem. We have been calling it winner takes it all, and we have structured the wrong solution around it. I think our problem could be the model. Senegal, for example, has a mixed or hybrid model where you have the preferential votes, and then now you have the elective votes. I think it's time we had discussions around our election model, but increasingly we must also be honest with ourselves that we have a moral question. We could elect or select people to the IEBC Commission, but if we select corrupt people, we will get a corrupt process. If we demand corrupt processes, we will get those corrupt processes. We have a moral obligation to serve this country. We have a moral obligation to elect people of integrity into these offices.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have just run out of time, but thank you so much for making time for us. That is Philip Mangala, governance and law expert, as well as Dr. Julia Chege, governance expert. The conversation continues online, and of course, unfortunately, we've just run out of time. I'm unable to read some of your feedback, but don't go too far. My colleague Khalid Abdullah is up next with Kurunzi Mashinani to give you the latest in what is happening across the country when it comes to current affairs, business, as well as sports. For now, we wish you a good morning, and don't go too far. Khalid Abdullah is up next.
Have you tried any of these generative AI programs where you give it a few words and it spits out an image? Now software is turning text prompts into video. It's super realistic, but also sometimes super dangerous. Think of an AI assistant that can perform multiple tasks. It answers an email for you, books you a doctor's appointment, and brews you a coffee when you're tired. Doesn't sound too bad to me. But these algorithms won't just be personal assistants. A fully autonomous AI could replace human workers in a number of fields, for example, in customer service or finance. But, as we all know from playing around with the likes of ChatGPT, no matter how well developed the algorithm, it can sometimes produce complete nonsense. And you may not even notice. So an AI model acting autonomously and making mistakes could put lives at risk. Take the medical field, for example. Imagine an AGI assisting with surgeries, diagnosis, or treatment. But if it gets something wrong without expert supervision, patients' health could be compromised. So we need to find ways to minimize the risks. And as we move closer to algorithms almost indistinguishable from humans, we might need to be rethinking our relationship with AI. An AI child might seem a little eerie at first, but it could actually be an option for people who can't have children. Or it might help parents who lost their child deal with grief. With enough data, they could even rebuild their lost child as a digital entity. Whether that would be ethically justifiable is another matter. But here again, we need to think about protection from AI's flaws. Imagine your virtual child suddenly changing personality. It could also just stop working entirely, and the emotional consequences for you could be severe. And forming an emotional bond with an AI that can think independently and develop emotions brings up a whole new set of questions. Is it ethically okay to say it's just a machine? Or do we need to think about something like AI rights? All right, that is certainly a lot to wrap your head around. Do we even want such a future? Let us know what you think. Has Elon Musk just made telepathy possible? A wireless brain chip named telepathy has been successfully implanted in a human. At least that's what the US tech billionaire announced on X. Basically, Musk's goal is to connect human brains to computers and let users communicate with digital devices via their thoughts. Sounds very futuristic. Still, how much of a breakthrough is it really? And what's in it for you? So-called BCIs can measure brain activity and translate it into digital commands. If you were using such a device, you could, in theory, communicate with digital devices in a completely new and seamless way. As Musk puts it, telepathy would enable you to control your phone or computer and, through them, almost any device, just by thinking. Does that sound intriguing? Well, there's a big downside. Musk's chip has to be implanted in your brain. The surgery is conducted by a robot. It connects 64 flexible threads, thinner than a human hair, from the chip to the brain. For people with diseases or disabilities, this invasive procedure might be worth it, though. For example, if you're suffering from epilepsy, BCIs can detect a potential seizure in advance and could help avoid it. Musk himself mentions other possibilities in his tweet. Initial users will be those who have lost the use of their limbs. Imagine if Stephen Hawking could communicate faster than a speed typist or auctioneer. Well, the late Cambridge genius would most probably have liked the technology and benefited from it. And in general, BCIs have huge potential in the medical field. Stephen Hawking was suffering from ALS, a fatal type of motor neuron disease. It is characterized by progressive degeneration of nerve cells. People affected by it lose their motoric capabilities. A BCI could have enabled Hawking to type text with his thoughts, but this isn't something Musk's business Neuralink has invented. There are other companies that have already conducted successful human trials. Australian-funded company Synchron, for example. Other researchers are even building neural connections between brain implants and muscles. In May 2023, Swiss company NeuroRestore managed to help a man walk again, whose legs were paralyzed after an accident. By the way, these two examples have a big advantage over the Neuralink model. While they also need to be implanted in a patient's head, the surgery needed is far less invasive. So, why does Musk's Neuralink get so much hype? Musk is by no means the first to do it, despite the hype. But so far, there hasn't been a person with a clout comparable to Musk's pushing the technology. Musk didn't even shy away from turning animal testing into PR events. In 2020, he introduced Gertrude, a pig with an implanted Neuralink chip. And in 2021, he boasted about Pager, a monkey that could play the video game Pong with his thoughts via a chip implant. Apart from that, he has made some pretty steep predictions about the possibilities of the technology. We can save and replay memories. The future is going to be weird, he said, at the 2020 Neuralink event, for example. Musk seems determined to hack our brains, and he believes that BCIs can improve individuals far beyond the medical benefits. But would you let a Musk-run company literally drill into your brain? There's a lot at stake. Just think of all the sensitive data that is potentially recorded while tapping into your thoughts. What do you think of Musk's BCI ventures? Let us know.
Is artificial intelligence taking away our jobs, or does it actually create new and improved opportunities for work?
The workers are in many cases outsourced. They are not in the same companies, in the same buildings, not even in the same countries in many cases as the places where the models, the algorithms are produced. A typical data worker is a person who, in many cases, doesn't have many other options. So data work is, the best options among.
This job feels like giving an individuality to me. Like I feel as an individual, like I am earning now, I am self-dependent, and I have freedom. A financial freedom is something different if you are experiencing that.
The work in itself is very